Welcome to a special radio program to you by Slavic Community Center of Northwest. This program is dedicated to the Great Shakeout event. My name is Ivana, and today we have some guests from the Oregon Department of Emergency Management and Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. Today we will delve into the significance of the Great Shakeout, understand earthquakes better, and uncover the best strategy for earthquake preparedness. I will let our guests introduce themselves before we just jump into the question. So please.
Hi everyone, my name is Regina Ingabire. I work with the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management as Community Resilience and Outreach Manager. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Hi, and I'm Althea Rizzo, and I work for the Oregon Department of Emergency Management, where I am the Geologic Hazards Program Coordinator, and I am happy to talk earthquakes at any time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, what is the Great Shakeout event and why it's important for us?
Yeah, so the Great Shakeout is an international earthquake drill, and this gives people an opportunity to practice what they should do when the ground starts shaking during an earthquake. And so on Thursday, tomorrow at 10:19 in the morning, millions of people around the world are going to be practicing how to drop, cover, and hold on so that they can be safe during an earthquake.
So, what is the Great Shakeout drill?
So the drill is the opportunity to register to participate and to practice what we know will keep you safe during an earthquake. When the ground starts shaking and you don't expect it, and this may be your first earthquake ever, it's like, your brain freezes. So you want to practice often what to do so that when it does start shaking, you don't even think about it. You get underneath the table, you hold onto the table leg, you cover the back of your head and neck, and you just wait until the ground shaking stops, and then you can exit the building and go to your meeting point.
Okay, thank you. How can communities participate in the drill?
Everyone can participate in the drill, and the goal here is to raise awareness about earthquake preparedness and to make sure that people have information and people know what to do and before the actual earthquake happens. And everyone can participate wherever they are. Could be at work, could be at home, could be at school. It's just to drop, cover, and hold on until the earthquake or until the ground shake stops.
And another thing is, if you can't do it at 10:19 tomorrow, you can do it on Saturday when you and the kids are at home. Your religious organization this weekend can do it during services. So it doesn't have to be done tomorrow at 10:19. It's just we want people to practice soon with the people that they might be with during an earthquake so that everyone has that opportunity to learn what to do.
How can listeners get involved in the Great Shakeout event if they haven't participated before?
It's very simple. You drop, cover, and hold on. And for those who are in wheelchair or they use a walker, they can also lock the walker or the wheelchair and remember to cover their head and the neck.
And participants can sign up at shakeout.org/Oregon, and they can register to participate, and we'll get lots of information there on how to, prepare for earthquakes, how to participate in the Great Oregon Shakeout, and what they can do in the future to get themselves and their families and their households better prepared.
Thank you. How can businesses and schools participate in the Great Shakeout and ensure the safety of their employees and students?
Everyone can participate by informing their employees, even the customers. For the schools, they can inform students what to do and do the same drill, drop, cover, and hold, and have to cover your neck and shoulders, your neck and head. And if there's a shelter nearby, like a table or a desk where someone can go underneath, that would be good practice to do. But also it's an opportunity to raise awareness about preparedness in general and make sure that they can share that information when they get back home with everyone in their family.
And if you are a business or a school, you can go to shakeout.org/Oregon and register to participate in the Shakeout. And there are guidebooks there and resources for schools, for businesses, for faith-based groups, for families, on different ways to do the Shakeout. And it's also a great opportunity to, if you're a business or a school, for instance, to look at your building. Is your building going to be safe during or after the earthquake? It's an opportunity to talk to your employees or students and staff about, what is the plan after an earthquake. It's just, the Shakeout is really meant to be the start of a conversation among the public and with the government agencies and schools and pretty much everyone, so that we can start making ourselves better prepared for when this bad day will come.
What exactly is an earthquake and how does it occur?
So, so an earthquake is basically a break in the ground. And there's different ways that earthquakes can happen. If you think of the earth as sort of an egg, we have this, and this egg has broken eggshells, and those eggshell pieces kind of move around with plate tectonics. And sometimes those plates can move past each other. Sometimes those plates can hit each other and push up. Sometimes those plates can dive underneath another one. And what we have right off of our coast is called the Cascadia subduction zone, where we have the Juan de Fuca plate, which is an oceanic plate, which is heavier than the North American plate, which is a continental plate, which is lighter. So we have the Juan de Fuca plate diving under the North American plate, and it's that subduction zone that runs from Northern California all the way up to the northern end of Vancouver Island. And this is a very long fault zone, and so it's capable of very large earthquakes. And so what happens is, when you rub rocks together, they don't rub smoothly, and so those fault zones get locked. But the continents are still moving behind them. And that pressure builds up. And then over time, that pressure builds up so much that the rock eventually breaks. And it's that breaking and the movement of the plates that cause the ground to shake. And that's your earthquake.
Whoa. Is Oregon prone to the earthquakes?
Well, Oregon doesn't get a whole lot of big ones like California does. Mostly because our big fault is offshore and it only happens every few hundred years. But we do have crustal faults. And when you think of a California earthquake, those are crustal faults. Those where you have plates sliding, back and forth against each other. And we do have some of those here in Oregon. And in fact, Portland has the Portland Hills Fault. If you go to Forest Park out on Highway 30, that's the fault scarp. That's the fault zone right there. And so Portland could have very large crustal earthquakes. We had our last damaging earthquakes in Oregon were in 1993. We had one in Klamath Falls. We had one in Scotts Mills. And those were 6.0 earthquakes. And so they cause a lot of local damage. But it's the Cascadia subduction zone that we, really prepare for, because that is the big one. We can look to what happened in 2011 in Japan, 2004 in Sumatra and Indonesia, to what we can expect to see here in the Pacific Northwest. Because remember, it runs from Northern California all the way up to British Columbia, so it's going to shake. And it's going to shake, and they're going to feel it in Eastern Oregon and Eastern Washington, if it's the full RIP 9, if it ruptures that full length. So those are the earthquakes that we have to worry about. Luckily, they don't happen very often. So we hope Mother Nature gives us the time to prepare. We have a lot of buildings that were built a long time ago before we even knew about plate tectonics. So we have some work to do to get prepared for it.
Yes, you're right. What are the potential risks and dangers associated with earthquakes here in Oregon?
So that's a really good question because, you know, that's what really people want to know about is how bad is the shaking going to be where I'm at? And it really depends on the kind of earthquake and where you are. Of course, you have the ground shaking. That's kind of the one that people notice the most because, you know, the ground is shaking. But we also have, for Cascadia subduction zone, we are going to have a tsunami after that. And if you remember 2011 Japan, 2004 Sumatra, that is the kind of a tsunami we can expect to see here in the Pacific Northwest. Now that tsunami is not going to come inland. This is not the movie 2012 where we have tsunami coming over the Himalaya mountains. It might go upriver a couple 20 miles, but the tsunami will happen on the coast. And it's going to come on shore in about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on where you are. And it's going to be very, very large. We could have waves up to 50 to 90 feet, depending on where you are. When it comes to, you know, what kind of damage can be caused by the earthquakes, we're going to see our utilities, you know, our power, our water being affected. And that could be affected for years afterwards. In 2010, Christchurch, New Zealand had an earthquake. And there were areas, residential areas around the city that did not have sewer or water for over 2 years. So they were using porta potties at their houses for 2 years. And there are places around Christchurch that they just put back to green space because they could not build infrastructure to withstand the kinds of earthquakes that they get. We can expect our transportation systems to be impacted. You know, remember back in 2020 when we couldn't get toilet paper because, you know, of COVID. Supply chain is a real issue when you can't move goods. And so that's why it's really important why we tell people to be 2 weeks ready. You know, you should be able to be in your own space and be self-sufficient for at least 2 weeks, have food, have water, have medicine for at least 2 weeks, because it's going to take time for food and resources to come into a place. Because remember, for a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake especially, everyone that we normally rely on for response, they're victims too. They have families that they have to take care of. You know, I'm assuming that it's going to be 3 or 4 days before I can get into the office after a Cascadia event. I have plans that I can walk to the office. I've got my backpack ready. It's ready to go in case something happens. But when it comes to what the earthquake can damage, pretty much everything. But the good news is we can fix that if we have enough time. We can retrofit our buildings so they don't fall down during the earthquake. We can strengthen our infrastructure. We can, you know, prepare our schools, make sure that those aren't going to be damaged, and that we can use them afterwards, because schools are a community center. They're a place that people go for comfort. And so when we're looking at the earthquake, yes, we're going to have really bad impacts, but there's so much that we can be doing now and that we are doing now to get better prepared for when that bad day comes.
What are the most common types of damage that occur during earthquakes?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because, you know, if we have an earthquake that's out in the middle of the desert and there's no buildings around, there's no damage. But the damage from earthquakes that are important to us is to our built environment. That's our buildings, that's our homes, that's our utility systems, that's our internet, that's our schools. And so when we're looking at building damage, we'll talk about this building, for instance. I don't know when it was built, but when the ground's shaking, because it has a soft first story, that parking garage at the first story, these types of buildings are susceptible to more damage because the piers holding it up on that soft first storage are weak. And so this building could have some issues. but that can be retrofitted and fixed. You can build to withstand the shaking. Another type of damage is caused by liquefaction. And so this is where you have sandy, unconsolidated soils that are full of moisture, full of water. And during the shaking, it basically turns to pudding. And buildings can shake down into the soil, or things can shake up out of the soil. Think of when you're standing on the beach and you're kind of rocking your feet back and forth. Well, that you're causing liquefaction, and you can kind of sink down into the ground that way. Well, that's what happens underneath our buildings in some places, especially down here in the northwest area of Portland. This is all fill and river soil, so it's very susceptible to liquefaction. But liquefaction also affects our utilities, because all of our power and water and sewer, they're all underground, so they can be damaged by liquefaction. Another type of damage comes in landslides. Oregon has a lot of really steep mountains, and we get a lot of landslides when we have a winter storm and the ground becomes saturated. Portland is very familiar with landslides. And if Cascadia were to happen in the middle of winter, like it did last time in 1700, it will cause thousands of landslides, and that's going to impact our road systems. And so it's expected that the roads between I-5 and 101 will be impacted for years afterwards. And it could be months before we can get roads opened to the coast again. So there's a lot of damage that can come from these earthquakes, but there's so much that we can do as a culture to prepare for the earthquakes. We can strengthen our buildings, we can mediate liquefiable soil, we can fix landslide-prone areas. We just need to do it.
I also wanted to add something about, like, when you go to the coast. She mentioned about tsunami, that when you go to the coast, I always look out for those tsunami evacuation signs. So you become more aware if there's earthquake happens and you are at the coast. So you can be able to have that awareness that where are those tsunami evacuation signs you have seen, and those could be the routes you can take to get on the higher ground to avoid.
And that, yeah, that's a really good point, because if we have a Cascadia event and we have the tsunami, there's going to be no warning, no official warning that a tsunami is coming. So if you're on the beach and you feel the ground shake, you want to get yourself and your family and as many people around you to high ground as soon as possible.
You have just 15 minutes to find this place, but you cannot go so far.
Luckily, in Oregon, there's high ground in almost everywhere. So most places on the Oregon coast, you're going to be able to get to high ground soon enough. There are some places that it's more difficult to get to high ground in time, but you got to try. Even though it's a long way, you're racing that first wave. And if you can just keep moving, the further you go, the more likely it is that you're going to outrace the wave.
That's why it's important when you go to the coast, always look for those tsunami evacuation signs. They're everywhere. Even when you enter close to the coast, you start seeing you are in tsunami zone. So that's kind of just starts building that awareness, what could happen, and then the safest route to get out.
I have never done it, so I will do. Thank you.
Yeah, next time we go to the coast, check them out. They're everywhere, which is really good reminder.
And for the shakeout, for folks that are over on the coast, after they do their drop, cover, and hold drill, then they should practice their evacuation route out of the tsunami zone. And people who are going to go visit the coast can check online before they go and find out if their hotel is in the tsunami zone. There are websites that they can download the maps and have it so that they have it in their phone, so that if something happens, they can just use their phone to help them out to the high ground.
What should people do during the earthquake to protect themselves?
Preparing for earthquake, first we'll start with the awareness. What you aware what could happen. And it's not about panicking and feeling scared and don't know where to start, but it's just like start taking steps, small steps one at a time to get prepared. And you start with the family. Let's say start with the family house, with one household or your family. Think about what is the safest place to go to when earthquake happens. What would be the meeting location with you? Let's say if you're separated, if earthquake happens when all of you are not at home, think about meeting location, where you're going to meet in your neighborhood that could be safest. Could be like school playground, could be at the park where you're not surrounded by many buildings or power lines that could fall down and cause some damage. But also you could start by making communication plan, for example. Make sure that you have those important contacts written down, or if then your phone, make sure that you can have access to your phone all the time. But also, when you talk about preparedness, we think as a community, get to know your neighbors actually should be step number one, because you never know what everyone could contribute towards that preparedness. Should be household preparedness, but also should be getting to know your neighbors as your main asset as well.
So the first thing is don't be scared. When people first start learning about how big Cascadia is and how much of an impact it has, they kind of get scared, and when you get scared, you shut down. And the important thing is humans are resilient. We are tougher than we think we are. We are more prepared than we think we are. And by getting yourself prepared, getting your family prepared, getting the elderly neighbor next to you prepared, getting that strange couple down the hall prepared. Once you're all prepared, it's much easier to let that fear go and just really be able to respond when that bad day happens. Because it's not just earthquakes. We have winter storms, we have ice storms, we have floods, we have wildland fires. So it's not just earthquakes, but we have all sorts of fun natural disasters that we have to deal with. And the first thing is letting that fear go, and helping someone else is really a great way of doing that.
And also, when you think about preparedness, you can even start looking in your own home. For example, look for those objects that if ground is shaking, that they're likely to fall down. And you could think about the bookcases. You could think about, beautiful paintings and TVs. If the ground is shaking, what would happen? So start looking about those potential hazards in your own home, and think about the ways you can make sure that they're secured, that they won't be able to fall down if the ground is shaking.
How can individuals and families prepare for the earthquakes in advance?
First, you can start by practicing drop, cover, and hold on as just starting point. And then after that, start talking about, as a family or as an individual, looking out for those potential hazards in your own home and surrounding your area. And then think about the safest route out of your home if you have to leave your house and it's safe to do that. And create a communication plan that will be the ways you can be able to communicate with someone in case you're separated during earthquake, or when earthquake happens, you're not in the same place. And think about meeting location. Where would your family, or where would you meet with your friends, for example, to check out if everyone is safe? Create that communication plan, plan for that meeting location, and also start preparing for planning for food and water and extra things you can put in your to-go bag. To-go bag could be just a simple backpack. You can put in, let's say, some, water bottles, some granola bars, have like flashlight in there, have a nice pair of walking shoes, have like a whistle, something that you could use during emergency, but also you could be able to grab and go if you have to leave your house. And preparedness should not be expensive. You can just start looking at your own home and look what you have. It's a matter of getting organized and thinking about everyone who could be impacted or could be relying on you. And don't forget to get to know your neighbors. That will become handy during an earthquake.
Yeah, Regina makes a really good point. Preparedness doesn't have to be expensive. And oftentimes, the hardest thing about getting prepared is taking that first step. And so what I really challenge all your viewers to do is do something today that makes you more prepared. And what I often recommend is finding a pair of sturdy shoes, a pair of leather gloves, and a flashlight or a headlamp, putting it into like a canvas shopping bag and putting it near your bed. So that if something happens in the middle of the night, whether it's an earthquake, an asteroid, or whatever happens, you have sturdy shoes, because you don't want to start any kind of disaster with feet that are cut because you've walked across broken glass. Having those leather gloves, having a flashlight right there by your bed, you probably already have those things in your home. It's just a matter of putting them into a canvas bag, putting them near your bed at night, and you can go to bed tonight sleeping better because you're better prepared than when you woke up. And it did not cost you a single thing.
And remember to involve children. You'll be amazed how much information they can learn, also retain. And for example, when it comes to communications, kids can memorize phone numbers. At least if you could have children memorize the 2 or 3 phone numbers, that's another safety measure you just took right there and didn't cost you anything.
One thing I would like to bring up about preparedness, and we were talking a little bit about fear earlier, is that you read a lot of things on the internet. You see a lot of different videos on YouTube, and they're designed to create fear, to create anxiety in people. So if you see something about an earthquake, if you see somebody saying that there's going to be an earthquake and I'm predicting it next Tuesday, there's no way to predict an earthquake. So if something you see on the internet makes you fearful, ask yourself, where can I go to get the right information? And if you're looking for information around earthquakes, you can go to the Oregon Department of Emergency Management. You can go to the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management's websites. We both have social media that you can follow to get the real information, because there's all kinds of people out there that their sole purpose is to make you fearful. Because when you're fearful, you're controllable. And so we want to make sure that you're not afraid of earthquakes, that you are getting prepared and you're getting the right information.
Actually, my office, the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, we provide lots of emergency preparedness trainings, including earthquake and, of course, severe weather events as well. And I'll make sure that you have my contacts of this after this discussion that you can share with your viewers. Anyone who lives in the city of Portland, they can reach out to our office to request trainings. And we offer these trainings for free for the communities. And where applicable, we even provide interpreters. So we have, if your community is not, they would like a training in their own specific language, we can provide that language accessibility as well.
Cool, that's cool, thank you. What role do government and emergency management play in earthquake preparedness and response?
First is we provide emergency preparedness trainings to communities for free, and we want to make sure that information is known to the public. And in terms of preparedness, is what we are doing here right now, is to make sure that people have information, people are aware, and everyone can take small actions. No matter what small step you take, you're working towards the bigger picture. That when before the government can come in to provide any additional resources, especially after major disaster, we want to make sure that each individual at least can sustain themselves for a few days, 3 days, 2 weeks. That would be great. But I want to make sure that people have information, knows what to do to get themselves prepared.
And it really depends on what kind of government. Regina works for the city of Portland. I work for the state of Oregon. So my role is a little bit different. At Oregon Department of Emergency Management, we help people like Regina and folks at the county level too to do their job in getting the population better prepared. But we also do things like work on promoting legislation. We work on things like funding. We help FEMA give money to different counties and to different groups to fix things. And so the government's role really is to do what we can beforehand and do what we can do afterwards.
Thank you. How can communities work together to reduce earthquake risks and improve resilience?
I think if we're prepared as community, everyone should know that they have something to contribute. They're saying if you look in your neighborhood, you have teachers, you have nurses, you have nannies, you have people who are hands-on, can be able to build a table, build a house. So everyone has a skill set that can contribute towards that community resilience. But we have to get to know our neighbors. Before you can go to ask for help, maybe first you should get to know who they are, talk to them. That's one thing we can do. But also in general, working closely, also getting to know like local resources that local government can provide. For example, our bureau, I mentioned those trainings we provide. They're free of charge to the public, and community should be able to reach out to us. I work closely with so many community-based organizations, and my job is to make sure that people have information and people know that we're here to provide that information. So it's our local county offices as well. They provide lots of emergency preparedness in general. So we just want to make sure that we are all prepared as a community. We can provide the trainings, but also when people can also take action on their own, we can also provide all the support we can, but everyone has to be involved in one or the other.
That's great. Thank you. Would you like to add?
Yeah, I would like to build on what Regina said. You know, everyone has a role, and that's very true, because the state of Oregon is really only as prepared as its people are prepared. And it starts with you having a conversation, with me having a conversation, me getting, like she said, getting to know our neighbors, but it's also showing up in the civic space. When your city council is looking at their budget, are they looking at retrofitting schools? Are they looking at retrofitting the library? Are they retrofitting the fairgrounds so that those spaces after an emergency are available? So personal preparedness is like the bedrock, but we also have to be looking larger at what our cities, our county, and our states are doing, and be a voice for change and for resilience. Talk to your city council, talk to your state legislators, call your congressperson, you know, make this part of what's important to you so that you can not be so scared about earthquakes, because we're all working towards that goal of being ready for them.
What resources are available for individuals and communities to learn more about earthquake preparedness and risk mitigation?
Okay, there's so many resources out there. If you go to our website, the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management, there's a whole list of actions people can take at household level, at the community level, and also those list of trainings I mentioned that we provide. There's also publicalerts.org. That's also another great website. Actually, people can sign up to get notifications or alerts on their phone in the case of any. It doesn't have to be a major disaster. It could be even just warning. For example, there is police activity in your neighborhood, so you don't have to be scared. Why am I seeing so many cars around here? But you can get a notification what's happening in that area. So I encourage everyone, actually, if you live in this area, to sign up for public alert and then opt in to be able to get those notifications.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good information out there. If they're looking for basic preparedness, they can go to the city of Portland, but they can also go to ready.gov. That's a FEMA website that has a lot of really good information. They can go to shakeout.org/Oregon and register for the Great Oregon Shakeout, and they'll start getting more information. They can, if they're a homeowner, they can go out and search Google FEMA seismic retrofit home, and there will be a lot of information on how they can retrofit their homes so they're able to stay in their homes even if they don't have power and water. So there's a lot of really good information out there. Next year, the Oregon Department of Emergency Management is launching a program called Be 2 Weeks Ready, where we are going to be helping communities, much like what Regina does, on getting better prepared, getting to know your neighbors, working with your neighbors on preparedness activities. They're fun. And that'll be launching early next summer, leading up to the Great Oregon Shakeout, but we're also adding the Great Oregon Camp In, which is the weekend after the shakeout to practice everything. So we kind of turn off our power, turn off our water, and practice what would happen after an earthquake so we know what to do. So there's a lot of really good information out there.
Thank you.
Can I add something? There's also great training that my office provides. It's called Neighborhood Emergency Teams. In short, we call NET. The NET program, we train community members to become first responders in their neighborhoods. And it's one of the great ways people can get involved and really feel empowered with knowledge and information and know-how. So as we said earlier, that what role can everyone play in earthquake or afterwards is having also that access of information and know-how. And those will be our first responders in the neighborhoods before any government officials can be able to get in. And it's free training. I think it takes up to 30 hours of training, but people get to learn a lot beyond household preparedness, but also learn about how to turn off water or gas if it's necessary, how to do certain rescue in the neighborhood. It's a great way to get involved and get great information and training as well.
Yeah, that's a great Portland program. If you're not in Portland, you can look to the community emergency response teams, which is basically the same thing, where you get training and you become first responders in your own neighborhood, because that's what we see after these very large events. Your neighbor, your coworker are your first responders, or you're their first responders. So, taking some basic first aid classes is also really useful, because you never know when something like that might be needed.
Actually, we also another trainings to provide. Community members, a community group like a church or a community organization, they can request training in first aid and CPR trainings. They can request trainings. We have another great program called Basic Earthquake Communication Nodes, Beacon program. And we trained those volunteers to become, again, like first responders in the neighborhood. When our major communication lines are down, those beacon sites are where people can be able to communicate to the nearest fire station in their neighborhood. And to provide that training, it's really quite short, about 90 minutes training, but people will be really, they would walk away with the knowledge of how to communicate to the nearest fire station, and then they become beacon volunteers. We have about 51 caches throughout the city of Portland.
Wow. Thank you for sharing these resources. Very important to be ready.
And you're always looking for volunteers in all communities. So,
thank you. Okay. And we have few last questions. Can you share some resources or websites where listeners can find more information about earthquake preparedness and the Great Shakeout event?
Yeah, so they can go to shakeout.org/Oregon and register to participate in the Shakeout tomorrow, but they can also register to participate next year. And if they can't do it tomorrow, if they can't actually do the drop, cover, and hold drill tomorrow, they can do it over the weekend, and it still counts. We just want to make sure that people are practicing what to do during an earthquake, which is dropping to the ground, covering the back of their head and neck, and holding on to whatever it is that they are dropping underneath. Another website is ready.gov, and there is tons of information there on how to prepare for seniors or pets or children. There's food plans and how to do water and all kinds of things. There is also so next year, our office is also going to be starting a new program called Be 2 Weeks Ready. And so folks can be on the lookout for information on that. If they want to learn more about tsunami information over on the coast, they can go to tsunami.gov and get more information there. And there's also the Oregon Department of Emergency Management's website where we have tons of information.
Thank you.
people can also go to Portland Bureau of Emergency Management website. There's a lot of information out there too, how to get prepared and other community trainings we offer within our city of Portland. But also there is publicalerts.org. It's another great website where you find information about preparedness at household level, and also how to prepare for other severe weather events that are occurring often these times. Like when you have extreme heat, people can know what to do. And also trainings that we provide about heat exhaustion. We provide those trainings as well. And also people can be able to prepare for winter storms. Sometimes it's the first time people are experiencing winter here, so they can also know what to do. And also they can reach out to me. I'll make sure to share my contacts after this discussion. People are free to call me, email me, and we'll take the conversation from there.
Thank you.
Another website that I just remembered that I should probably be telling people about is shakealert.org. So Shake Alert is an earthquake early warning system, and you can get alerts on your phone before the shaking arrives where you are. So Shake Alert is not an earthquake prediction because you cannot predict earthquakes. It is an earthquake early warning. So once the earthquake starts, a quick electrical signal is sent out to your phones, and you can get an alert on your phone, much like we had with the presidential test alert last week. And it comes to your phone as long as you have emergency alerts turned on in your phone. And Shake Alert can also be used to do automated things like shutting down water valves in water systems, or bringing elevators to the first floor, or telling surgeons to take the scalpel out of the patient. So there's a lot of ways that we are able to use Shake Alert, but people can go and sign up for it, and there's a couple of different applications that they can download, whether they have an iPhone or an Android, but also just making sure that your phones can receive emergency alerts.
Thank you. What key takeaways or messages would you like to leave with our listeners regarding earthquake preparedness and the Great Shakeout?
The first thing that I would love for them to take away is they don't need to be scared because they're probably more prepared than they think. it just takes a little bit of time and effort. It does not have to be expensive. And they can go to bed tonight more prepared than when they woke up by taking one action, like putting sturdy shoes and a pair of leather gloves near their bed at night before they go to bed tonight, so that when they wake up in the morning, they're more prepared. It doesn't cost anything. But preparedness really starts with the individual. We want to make sure that they are talking with their family, their neighbors. Meeting their neighbors is really important. So my key takeaway is, yeah, earthquakes are scary, but there's no reason to be afraid of them.
The main takeaway, first of all, I want to encourage everyone tomorrow at 10:19 a.m. If you can, wherever you are, at school, at work, at home, take a minute to practice the drill. So that helps you to build that memory muscle about drop, cover, and hold on. Make sure that you share that information with everyone at your house or your household, with your friends and your neighbors. And give yourself a task to take one action maybe every day and make it fun. It doesn't have to be that scary moment you all have to prepare for. Just make it fun and prepare when the earthquake is not here. So when it happens, you have all the main preparedness steps taken.
Good, thank you. So I think we finished. A big thank you, Regina and Althea, for sharing these insights, very important information. Remember, preparedness is a key, and together as a community, we can stand resilient against nature's challenges. Stay safe and stay informed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.